Hello my friends and welcome. Deja vu. We are starting the video from the Russian airplane losses for the third video consecutive. So today two of the Russian fighter jets were shot down by, I guess, Patriot system somewhere near to Mariupol. They lost one fighter bomber Sukhoi 34 as usual and one Sukhoi 35S. You may see it on this picture. So what's the difference between the standard Sukhoi 35 fighter jet and Su-35S? Well, S stands for Stroyevoi, so combat fighter jet. The NATO name is Flanker M. The Flanker M is the latest version of Sukhoi 35. So all of the modern avionics, all of the modern systems and radar were installed on that jet, but after all it was shot down. At first we get the information from the Air Force Command that two of the Russian planes were kaputted. Usually Sukhoi 34 performs its job dropping the aviation gliding bombs, and Sukhoi 35 is actually used to protect the Sukhoi 34, but sometimes it may also carry some of the bombs. It has mostly the same capability as Sukhoi 34 carrying those bombs, but it may take less payload, that's it. One of the locals filmed the search and rescue operation near to Mariupol, so the airplane crash landed into the water, and according to the information we got, a pilot lost his life and his body was delivered to the shore. This video quality is not really good and hard to say what is really happening out there, but for sure there was the Russian helicopter flying over water searching for a pilot. And again a very bad quality video showing the Russian checkpoint. They are restricting the move for civilian cars into this particular district where the airplane was shot down. So Mariupol is over here. It's been occupied by Russia for a very long time already, and it has some of the shores, some of the beaches in the area, and the airplane crash landed somewhere in the place. One of the Russian military bloggers, who is also a Russian military pilot, confirmed the crash of the fighter jets. He obviously knows the people and he was able to get the reliable information that indeed Russia lost two of the airplanes. He even wrote some of the poem. Roses are red, violets are blue, all pilots dead. If they fly to Ukraine, they will be shot too. I mean, not exactly same poem, he just honored all of this big text, but anyways, my friends, I do hate Russian pilots because they drop the bombs on civilian infrastructure in Ukraine, also on military, but civilians lost lots of their lives, especially in Mariupol. The most devastations were brought by using aviation bombs. Just 3 days ago, Russia lost 3 of their airplanes, also including Sukhoi 35. Totally, they lost 6 of the airplanes just for 3 days, but if we count the last months, in general, 10 of the airplanes, I mean fighter jets, half of what they're able to produce per year. According to the data coming from the Ukrainian military command, the Patriot system that was transferred to Ukraine from Germany already hit 3 of the Mi-8 helicopters, 1 Sukhoi 24 tactical bomber, 9 of Sukhoi 34 fighters bombers, 3 Sukhoi 35s, the best Russian fighter jets, 1 A-50 Russian AWACS airplane, and 1 Ilyushin-22 flying command center, but it was damaged and will never fly again. It was able to land in Anapa airfield. And so as you can see, the Patriot system is very effective. The problem is that Ukraine should use them to protect the cities and also against the Russian aviation. It means that the Ukrainian air defense is unable to release the full potential of those systems if they would just operate against the Russian fighter jets near to the front lines. Not just the airplanes were shot down today, also Ukraine targeted the oil depot near to Makiivka. It is the occupied territory of Donbass. Makiivka is located not far away from Donetsk, and it was the oil hub for the Russian army to advance in Avdiivka. Ukraine already kaputted many of the Russian oil depots or partially damaged them. It will obviously slow down the Russian army on the east and in other parts where Ukraine targets the Russian oil depots. For now, I am very concerned about Robotyne and in general about Zaporizhia Oblast and the south of Ukraine, because Russia concentrated around 50,000 soldiers in this small part of the front line. From the Ukrainian side, we have different figures. Some say around 20,000, some say around 10,000, from which 50% are now in reserve. With that advantage, Russia potentially might move forward, taking Robotyne and all of this ground that was liberated this summer. According to the latest information, Russia has 2 of the attack vectors over here from the west and from the south. For the second consecutive day, they tried to get Robotyne under control, but at the same time, they failed with those attack attempts, losing many of the vehicles. Russians say that they have lots of the vehicles, but what kind of those? MTLBs, T-55 tanks, those are not really effective, but if they continue to use them massively, they may advance. We have the latest review from the Michael 73 from the place. He stated that Russia lost indeed many of the vehicles, there is heavy fight, and Russia is unable to get into Robotyne. Now, this vector for now is total failure for Russia. Nevertheless, they move the gray area ahead a little. And a couple of days ago, they were successful in this place near to Verboa, so potentially they may go forward, as I said to you already in my previous video. I predict that finally Russia will take Robotyne under control, then it might happen probably very soon. They are fully ready to start the massive attack with all of the 50,000 soldiers that they were able to accumulate. And by taking Avdiivka, they may release some of the new soldiers and move them to this place. For it, they need around one more week, and after it, they'll start the massive offensive on Ukrainian positions, sadly. But in general, for now, we have good news from Robotyne. I saw a couple of the videos today how Ukrainians imprisoned the Russian soldiers. There are some of the drone videos, but I'm unable to share those with you on this platform. That's why I have my Telegram channel and I post everything over there. You may check it out in the video description just below. I use it every day to update my audience with what is happening around Ukraine and around the world in general. A Russian pilot, Maxim Kuzminov, was found dead in one of the cities in Spain. The last year, he hijacked his own helicopter, Mi-8, and flown on it to Ukraine, giving it to Ukrainian armed forces. Later on, he got the reward, $500,000, and decided to go to Spain. According to the latest information from the Ukrainian military intelligence, indeed, this guy was killed. At first we got the information from not so reliable sources, that is why I was checking this information for a very long time, but now the big media sources start to say about this case. His body was found near to the car at the underground parking, yet we don't have the reliable photos of the guy, of the body itself. As a variant, it is a planned fake death by Ukrainian intelligence together with Spanish authorities. Because the information is mostly hidden, we don't have the reliable evidence yet. What we only have is the statement of the Ukrainian intelligence. They say that the ex-girlfriend of the guy went to the Spain to meet with him, and after it, the guy was found dead. An interesting detective story, I would say. Well, if it is true and the ex-Russian military pilot lost his life in Spain, we all know who is behind it. Without the direct authorization from the Russian president, no one would dare to perform that act. I mean Russian hitman. Definitely it was used there, or they might hire someone in Europe. We know that Putin doesn't like traitors especially. Just recall the case with Skripal, with Litvinenko, all of them were poisoned. Litvinenko even lost his life. Putin also hates the opposition and journalists who are opposing or researching some topics about the Russian elite. He also considered them as traitors of Russia, and the only penalty for them could be just execution. That is what we see from Putin's side. This time they were not using the Novichok poison, but just eliminated the guy with the old school method. I think that really this guy was eliminated after all. And there are three big mistakes which Maxim did that led to his death. First of all, he was the only survivor in the crew of the helicopter, so he didn't negotiate with other crew members that he would take the helicopter and fly to Ukraine. So the rest of the crew lost their lives because of the shooting. Then he landed in the Ukrainian airfield. We don't know the full story, but probably he also shot someone from his crew. Well, at least the Russian side sees it like that. Because of his action, they lost some of the pilots or the other officers on board. It is a trigger for direct revenge from the Russian side. The second mistake which he did for him personally, he went publicly to the press saying about his action. Well, not only about his actions, but he was really pro-Ukrainian, saying glory to Ukraine, glory to heroes, I support Ukraine, the Russian regime is evil. He even put the t-shirt with Ukrainian symbols on him. so clearly the mark that he is traitor for the Russian side. And probably his last mistake was leaving Ukraine for Spain, for other country, let's say abroad, because Russia has its agents elsewhere. Well, also in Ukraine, but after all, in Ukraine I think it would be safer for him to stay. From what we know, he obtained the Ukrainian passport and left the country. You see that Russian FSB would do everything to eliminate their traitors. This guy actually did a fantastic job by taking the Russian helicopter to Ukraine, but his biggest motive, I think, was not the love towards Ukraine or the hate of the Russian regime. His main goal was to escape Russia for some nice country like Spain and to get some of the extra money relatively in the easy way. Actually, I did expect that it might happen like that. Now you see that Putin is completely out of limits after Navalny's death, after this Russian pilot death, and there will be many more. It is like 1930s with the Stalin's regime nowadays in Russia. The Russian regime also starts to clean some of the Russian military bloggers who say truth about the heavy Russian losses, about the poor competence of the Russian military command. So one of the military bloggers, Andrei Kots, was arrested today in Moscow because he got some of the marijuana with himself. By the way, his brother is also a Russian military blogger, so they were very critical towards the Russian military command and their actions relative to the Russian losses. They say that this operation wasn't really smart, for example, in Avdiivka, using midwaves and stuff, and later on you can see what happens to them too. So no one is safe in Russia. Those who are not loyal to Putin directly are in prison or gone. By the way, about Navalny, his mother is still unable to obtain his body. The Russian investigators say that it's possible to transfer the body for a funeral ceremony in around a couple of weeks. I have no doubts that he was killed. Before, Russia said that it was the blood clot, and now they say that they are not sure about the reason of Navalny's death. Sorry, I had to censor it a little because you never know what YouTube considers as some sort of the improper content for the audience. This is the Siberian Battalion of Russians. Those guys are awesome. You may say, Dennis, why are those awesome? Well, because those Siberians are fighting for Ukraine in Ukrainian army in a separate battalion, so I would consider those are the real Russian opposition. And obviously those Russians who support Ukrainian army and who support those guys with funds, whatever, with drones, this is the only reliable and direct way to change something in Russia. Quite a rare footage. Ukrainian FPV drone tries to hit the Russian surveillance drone in the form of the airplane, let's say, the classical wing and empennage construction. And this is the video from the Russian drone. You may see Ukrainian drone just flies very close, but from the third attempt, finally, Ukrainian drone hit the target. We have the confirmation in the skies, so probably it's the first case that FPV hits those kind of the Russian surveillance drones. The Ukrainian army continue to use the Baba Yaga drones. Those are equipped with many of the shells, and they may bring lots of the devastation, sometimes even damaging or destroying the buildings. Those are the Russian soldiers. They took the picture near to Avdiivka. Some people were laughing about the height of this one, but in general, from what you see, this guy has a nice helmet, even for him, nice vest, also this one, and probably there is also a helmet, radio, extra protection, nice boots, and I would say pretty much they are wearing a good uniform for combat action. In 2022 it wasn't like that. An average Russian soldier hadn't got that kind of advanced equipment which their army has right now. I'm sure that most of the stuff is made in China, not in Russia, especially those helmets. Also, if you check out the Russian rifles, you may find some of the aiming equipment that I believe is not made in Russia. No more rusty Kalashnikovs, as you may see. Nevertheless, the Russian army has many more losses compared to Ukraine, this time 1 to 3. So Russia lost 93 of the vehicles, totally Ukraine lost 35. It is for the last 3 days. Compared to Ukraine, Russia is losing many more tanks, lots of the BMPs, and lots of the supply trucks. For example, this Kamaz was hit by this drone, which is made in Ukraine. It's the Flying Wind design and quite successful. Russians also have the similar looking drone, the Flying Wind design, which is mostly used as the surveillance drone. This time the Russian drone unit was hit by the HIMARS system and completely kaput. Here we go again with the Chinese-made golf carts that Russian army uses in Ukrainian war. This one was hit by the drone and later on caught fire and totally kaput. There is no any protection for the driver, nothing. Very, very unsafe vehicle. I think that Russia has nowhere to spend the money for, and they created this, I don't know, Frankenstein drone. It is really huge. Our guys call it the mother of Mavics or Tsar Mavic. What is the use of this stupid thing? I don't know. Just look at this bouncing over here. So it will not be used for military purpose. Maybe they want to transport the cargo with it. Well, it flies. And I don't know. Maybe they'll find the use of this. I wonder what payload it may carry. Well, now we see it's just the test flight. We can see it on this rope because it's connected to the ground, just not to fly away very high. United Aviation Corporation is doing this stuff. I think mostly they waste money or someone earns money from the budget on those kind of projects, which are complete nonsense, I would say. I mean, maybe this idea is good, but all of this construction doesn't look reliable, very, very shaky. More about so-called Polish protesters. One of our volunteers said that the military cargo is unable to go to Ukraine for the third day consecutive. We may see some of the trucks on the platforms, and the Polish so-called farmers are not letting it go. Those are the supply trucks which are critical for Ukrainian army to fight on the front lines. We need to get munition to our guys on the fronts. You know that I don't like the situation in the House of Representatives in the United States with Mike Johnson, who is blocking the support of Ukraine with Trump himself. But here I think that it is even worse. You are delivering the military aid. Here it is. Just let us go. Let us go. Already, President Zelensky said about the case that what is happening now at the border shouldn't be tolerated. However, we see that Polish government tolerates this stuff, doing nothing to get rid of protesters at the border, so-called protesters. Zelensky says it's not about Ukrainian grain, it's about politics. I'm 100% sure that it is like that. Alright, there's the chance for Ukraine to obtain the longer-range ATACMS missiles. I think with the new military support from the United States, at least the White House is leaning towards supplying those missiles to Ukraine. In that case, Ukraine might use those to target the Kerch Bridge supply connection for the Russian army. That could be awesome. Everyone says about the Taurus cruise missiles, but those are unable to do lots of the harm to the Kerch connection. ATACMS may do it without the cluster munition, but with a standard warhead. Alright, we have just received the update from the Deep State military map, so Russia advances towards Lastochkina in Avdiivka. They captured Avdiivka before and now want to capture the local settlement, so we need to be prepared that Russia would occupy some of the local villages in this area, but the advancement is not that hard or not that fast as it used to be in Avdiivka. If we move from Avdiivka towards the northern part, over here, there is also the Russian advancement for today. It was yesterday and it is today, just a few meters. Nothing serious compared to what it was in Avdiivka place or in other places, for example, near to the Bakhmut during the recent week. It means that the Russian offensive, at least on the east, slowed down a little, but in the future, as I said to you, they will try to advance near to Robotyne, taking all the territory again. We'll see how it goes. Anyways, I'm gonna keep you updated on situation in Ukraine. Now, don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot, and also you may check out some of the links in the video description. You may support me on Patreon or on a sponsorship of this YouTube channel if you want to support my job. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.